What is up, guys? Zaid here, and today I'm going to be going over my Burning Abyss deck profile. I've played this deck on 2 videos on my channel now. I've played probably like 5 or 6 games on ranked with it. I've only lost, I think, one, and the deck's really fun. So, to start off, I'm going to go with my engine cards. There's a 3 Graph, 3 Seer, and 3 Scarm. I think it's kind of crazy all these cards are like at 3 right now. They are obviously the best Burning Abyss cards. Each one of them gets you another card, and they're the reason why I wanted to try this deck. I'm sure you notice looking at it, I play 18 hand traps, and so it's kind of like a invoked type deck, or like what's another example? Zodiac, where all your engine cards are 1 card engines that give you another card to play with later. Whereas BA, it's not technically a 1 card engine. Like normal summon Graph doesn't really pose a threat, but that 1 Graph can get you a Seer, which can get you back the Graph, or it can get you a Scarm, which would search Tour Guide. So your cards hypothetically can be 1 card, not combos, but 1 card engines if they need to be. Also, like once you have a Dante made, Seer and Dante can just recycle each other. So if you're in a grind where that's all you have, you can just like have a Dante and hit them with 3 hand traps. But this deck more so is a 2 card combo, I guess, because you want to have a Dante. And then Dante, you also have the chance to mill Insane. I've had games where I've opened like Alec, Farfa, and I make a Dante, and the Dante mills a Graph and a Libic. I chain block the Graph, and then Graph resolves. And you just from there can make like 2 to 3 interruptions. In worst case, like the Dante still gets you more cards back. So this deck can grind pretty hard, and it also can push for game relatively easy. And there's a lot of new extra deck cards it can abuse, so I really like it. And then this is probably controversial. I only play 1 Tour Guide, and I don't play Fiendish Rhino Warrior at all. My reason being that a lot of decks play a lot of hand traps nowadays, and Rhino hard loses to Valor Imperm. Tour Guide hard loses to Valor Imperm Ash. If the card, they both technically, or not both, but Tour Guide can get Gamma also, but if it gets Gamma, it leaves the board, and that's fine. For those that don't know how Burning Abyss works, if you control a non-Burning Abyss monster, they all say this. If you control a monster that is not a Burning Abyss monster, destroy this card. So if somebody Valor Imperm Ashes your Tour Guide, or Valor Imperms your Fiendish Rhino, you no longer can play the game. Your own monster becomes a floodgate that'll destroy all your other monsters when you try to play. The reason I even play 1 Tour Guide is because your end board typically does not only have BAs. So I want this to search off Scarm so that if they don't crack my board, I can still have a very powerful follow-up. Say you ended on like IP Beatrice and they're not able to crack it completely, then you'd probably still have at least the Beatrice on board. They can go you can go search Tour Guide on the end phase, and then on your turn, summon Tour Guide, summon Graph, and just continue to play. You could, I think, make an access code talker from there. And so you can not just auto lose or not be able to extend through whatever they have. Next, the only other 3 of is 3 Farfa. Only other 3 of in the Burning Abyss monsters. Farfa is the best one aside from the ones that float. It clears board so you can go for game, and it's also an interruption when you send it off Beatrice. Also an interruption if it's under anything that gets sent. So I really like making a Beatrice with this card under it so that you could pay cost, detach Farfa, and then if they imperm it or something, whatever interruption they could have, you'll still get the Farfa interruption. And then the one-ofs, we play 1 Alec, 1 Barbar, 1 Calcab, 1 Limbic, and 1 Rubik. I think the only controversial one here would be Rubik, because I don't play Needle Fiber and I don't play Virgil, so there's no real reason for this card. I solely play it because it's an extra name. I could cut it for a copy of a Libic or a Calcab or a Barbar, but then if I draw those cards in conjunction, it's not a free special summon. If I open 2 Libic, one would have to be specialed, one would have to be normaled, and I just wanted the diversity in names. And Alec is really good against certain matchups. You can send it off Beatrice to hit monster effects, but it has to be not activated effects. Like if you go summon Stratos and I chain Beatrice sending Alec, Beatrice would resolve, then Stratos would resolve, then Alec activates on a new chain. So it doesn't stop something like that. But if I go first and I have a Beatrice and they try making like a window or something, I can negate the window on my turn and keep playing. And the last engine cards I play are 2 Desires. Now that Graf and Seer are both at 3, you can play this card. It doesn't matter what you banish. And I could cut these for 2 more BA names, but I would rather draw 2 cards because this card can be engine cards or it could be more interruptions. And I really like Desires in this deck. We also play Gamma, so if they ash it, we can Gamma them and keep playing. And then for the hand traps, like I said, I play 18 and then a driver. So kind of 19, but not really. Hand traps take up 19 spots, but I play 18 hand traps. 3 Ash because it's the most versatile against every deck. 3 Veiler because it's Veiler. I really like this card against Drytron to hit the Fafnir or against Tri-Brigade to hit the normal summon banish effect. And it's pretty good against most decks. Like, it's not that great against Striker, but you can always hit the Kagari, stop the engage from getting added back. It's it reminds me though one thing about this deck. When you're not playing Tour Guide at 3 and you're not playing Rhino Warrior, Veiler and Imperm suck against your deck. Ash is alright if it hits Graf. Gamma's good against almost any deck, but here it's only good if you hit the Graf. Bell doesn't do it. Bell hits Seer. But if you go Chainlink 1 Seer, Chainlink 2 Dante, because that's typically Dante's going to grave when Seer does, then they could stop you from adding a card back, but your Seer will resolve summoning Dante. And then there's Skullmeister doesn't really hurt the deck that much either. You can typically chain block your more important ones. So this deck's really hand trap resilient. That's why I like it. But again, 3 Ash is the most versatile. 3 Effect Veiler. Good. It's like decent in most matchups. Gamma can be a blowout. It's just like Veiler, except it also can hit cards in grave, and the ones on field it negates, it destroys. So it's just a lot more versatile. It puts them in a really bad position, and it also gets a card out of your deck, which is kind of cool. Like, I don't know if that actually helps much, but it's like playing Upstart without having to play Upstart. And then 3 Ghost Bell and 3 Skullmeister for the grave interruptions. I really like Skullmeister this format. Against a deck like Tri-Brigade, it's actually playing a 4th, 5th, and 6th Ash because you can negate the Nerval. And then in that same matchup, Ghost Bell's pretty insane for stopping the Revolt. And a lot of these cards are very high impact in certain matchups and kind of low impact in others. But you play such an abundance of them that you can, in most matchups, can rely on drawing like 1 high impact, 1 low impact hand trap. And when you put those together, it's a pretty impactful turn. And then we play for the traps, 3 Imperm, which still a hand trap. Card's insane also. And in this, I don't main any back row removal. So like, if people floodgate me, any floodgate except for Mystic Mine, this is my only real out in the main. Set it in the same column on their turn, or on my turn, flip it, negate something, negate the zone. And then I'm trying this out, 1 Fiend Griefing. Even though like I would prefer to go second with this deck, I can go first if I have to. So you would think like, why am I playing a real trap? And why is this the real trap I chose? But my reasoning is that in a hand where I open all engine, the card is pretty decent still. It's a negate that could be 2 negates because you could shuffle one of their cards back and then also send Farfa. So you're doing 2 things for 1 card. And then in a hand where I draw all hand traps, I hand trap them to death. They don't really play. And then if I drew this card, it's an engine card and a disruption. Because then I could just set it if I didn't open any other engine cards. And on their turn, use the griefing as a disruption. But instead of sending like a Farfa, I could send a Graf, summon out the Scarm. And then if they kill the Scarm, I have the search. Or I could just straight send Scarm to guarantee the search. It just like is an interruption that can either be a double interruption or an interruption and a combo piece. So I like the versatility in that. And then for the extra deck, triple Dante. This might be different than most builds. I think people often play 2. But because I'm playing a bunch of cards that get slapped on top of the Dante, I wanted to have a 3rd. And then 1 Beatrice. I don't play the purple Dante, gay Dante, because I don't really have the space. I could technically cut 1 normal Dante for him, but I really would rather have the normal Dante. So if Beatrice dies, typically they don't kill it because they expect you to be playing the purple Dante, especially when you're playing a Burning Abyss deck. So they don't usually kill it, but if they do, you can still summon out a Dante, which is fine. It floats into another card for you. It's not as impactful as the purple Dante, but it's not going to come up often that you would summon the purple Dante, and it'll come up much more often that you would hard summon the third Dante. But then we play the new Utopia Draco Future and the F-Zero to make him. This package I really like. If you go first and you open like a lot of gas, the most insane end board I made, which is actually on video. I forget which, I think it's the first Burning Abyss video I posted. So I was against Tri-Brigade. I opened Beatrice, IP, Utopic Draco. And that board, I don't know how you beat that. That's like crazy. But this card is really good. Not the Utopic Future, but the Utopic Draco. It is a monster negate. It can't be destroyed by battle or card effect. And if it negates a monster on the field, it takes control of it. And you're typically making this card with an IP. So like if you negate their guy, take control of it, then you can IP using their guy to make the unicorn. And now you don't have to lose your Draco. And you just, it's insane value, I feel like. You negated a monster, you got a free material to make a unicorn. That's another negate. And you probably have hand traps in hand. Then we play the Zeus and the Downerd Magician to make the Zeus 4 material. A lot of decks end on boards that a Dante without using effect can punch over at least one thing. An example is a Drytron. They're all playing the Dragoon package now, and Dragoon's kind of a hard card to out. But I can hard summon Dante, punch over Anaconda, and then main 2 Downerd Zeus. And then if you use one Zeus and they try to Dragoon negate it, you can chain the second Zeus effect to just secure that the board goes through. Because I believe this card is not once per turn, right? Yeah, it's not. Sweet. I was making sure I wasn't cheating when I did that. But the Zeus is kind of crazy, and with 4 materials, it's even crazier. And with Dante as one of the materials, it's even crazier because you get an effect. One play I've done that I thought was like really next level was a special a BA, normal Seer, make Dante, attack over the Anaconda, main 2, Downer Magician, Zeus. And then when you activate the Zeus the first time, detach Dante and Seer. And then Seer will add back, or will summon back Dante. Dante will add back Seer. And then when you Zeus the second time, you're sending the new summon Dante, and you're detaching another BA and the Downerd. So you can then add that other BA back, and you got all the cards you used to make the Zeus back for free, and you board wipe them twice, which just feels very freaking good to me. And then we play, I said the Downerd already, we play the Nightmare Shark. This card just lets you make sure you can get a Zeus to resolve against a matchup where Dante can't swing over something. It also lets you go for damage in time. I don't really deal with that because I play on Dueling Book, but it also can go for game sometimes. And then I play one Super Quantum Mech Beast Grand Pulse. This card could also be a, what's it called? This could be a Nightmare Phoenix, which I think is technically easier to make past your first turn because you'll typically have something not named BA on the board. But on your first turn, I think this is easier to make. And it's also, like, it can turn into more. So if they're playing a back row deck, they flip something that's hard for me to deal with, and I can make this and deal with it. Then I can attack with it and make a Zeus, or I can make another XYZ and then make the Utopic Draco. So it outs back row, but then it's not just dead on the board. It can extend into these negates and stuff that I play. And then we got our Link 4s, the Access Code, and the Appaloosa. Appaloosa will occasionally come up, more so now with IP, because you're taking one of their guys when you negate with Utopic Draco. So that's an extra material. So if I want, I could then IP with the Draco and the guy of theirs I took to make an Appaloosa for 3 on their turn. But of course, then we play the IP and the Unicorn just for an IP disruption. Unicorn also, because I don't play Phoenix, is a Link summonable way to out back row and stuff. And then the last Link is the Psy Frame Lord Lambda. This card is iffy, but if I open a Gamma, I would rather make this than IP so that my Gamma stays live, because Gamma is one hell of a card. There's Tri-Brigade lists that play this. I sadly don't have much way to utilize the Gamma and Driver like they do, where you can make an Omega, banish a card, and then end phase search off Lambda and keep going, which I could technically try to make room for. I'm not opposed to doing it, but this card still is pretty good. Just ending on like a Beatrice and this with a Gamma in hand is pretty hard to deal with. And then in the side deck, I side 3 copies of Lancia and 3 Droll, because in the matchups that these are good, they're like the only hand trap you need. Against an Invoke deck or something, I'll do this. They won't make a Mechaba, and then on my turn, I can ram face with my Dantes, make either a Zeus or a Draco or a Beatrice, and then just leave them in a stinky spot. And the same with Droll against matchups that it's very good against, like Drytron. They'll oftentimes just pass, and it's like, all right. And then you get to put up 1 or 2 negates with your engine, but you probably have more hand traps. Like I play 18. I think I usually have 21 hand traps post side. And then I also put in this fear mode for the Drytron matchup because if I don't, even if I hand trap them 1 to 2 times, they can often still end on the Dragoon Anaconda and something else. And if I don't hand trap them, they can end on like the Ultimateness, the Dragoon. They just end on a lot. But the fact that Dragoon guarantees a minimum of 2 monsters makes this card pretty powerful to me, because then they just need any one monster hanging out, and you can out their entire board. And because I'm playing a Burning Abyss deck, all my engine cards except Tour Guide say you can reveal this card to special summon it. So even though it's technically a hindrance, like I'd rather normal summon my Graph than special summon it, I can still play the game. And I believe I can also attack this card. Let me read it real quick. Never mind, I can't attack this card. If I could, that would be nice. But you can do that, attack something else with your Dante, and still play the game. Still make a Zeus, still make a Utopic Draco after outing all their cards. And even if you open this and like 1 or 2 hand traps, you can comfortably let them combo out their entire board, and then you have the hand traps for the follow-up. And then for the rogue matchups and just like the heavy back row matchups, decks like Striker, decks like in regards to rogue, something like Guru or something like that. I've got the heavy storm, the Harpy's Feather Duster, 3 Twin Twister, 1 red Reboot, and then 1 Imperial Order for if I go first or second, honestly. This card's also good for outing Mystic Mine. The card's just like really insane. So like we got the first 9 are for combo decks basically, and then the last 6 are for more control decks. And I play so many hand traps that oftentimes something is subpar in the matchup. Like if I'm against Striker, what is even subpar against Striker? Like I was saying before, Veiler's not the best, and Imperm's not the best. I think Bell might be dead in that matchup actually. The Bell and Meister stop Ray, and that's about it. But that's actually pretty effective. So I'd probably against them take out something like Effect Veilers and Imperms, and then put in the Imperial Order, the Twin Twisters, the Heavy Storm Duster, or Drolls. It could be like 3 Drolls, Heavy Storm, Twin Twister, Imperial Order, something in regards to those. Also, Gamma might not be the most efficient hand trap in that matchup. I could take out the 3 Gamma and the 3 Ash and the Driver and put in 3 Droll, 3 Twin in an order. And another benefit of Twin is the discard. If I'm going second and I look at my hand, I got my 6 cards, I got some back row, I can Twin Twister, discard Graph, out 2 back row, Graph effect summon Seer, reveal a BA to special summon it, and keep comboing. So the card's really sick in this deck. That's basically everything though. I enjoy this deck. I think Drytron's a kind of hard matchup. Tri-Brigade has felt pretty easy, and those are the main meta decks I've played against with it. So if you have any questions or any improvements you think could be made, or just if you play the deck and have a different build, let me know what you're running. Let me know what you think of mine. Thank you for watching. Take it easy, guys.